Welcome, everyone. It's a beautiful Monday, huh? You know that feeling you get? Neville Goddard talks about the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And so we were reading lecture 5 on Saturday. I would believe it was Saturday. And there was a question. Somebody asked the question, um, what do you mean by feeling? So Neville explained, he says, it's not about an emotion. You see, because when I say feeling, we tend to think emotions, but he says it's not about an emotion. It is simply that satisfaction. For instance, when you have chore day coming up and you know you have to do the laundry, that feeling you get when you're like, oh, I gotta do the laundry. And you do it. See that feeling? The feeling is it's a knowing that you do something. It's a knowing that something is done. It's not an emotion where, yay, I'm happy. Oh, I'm sad. No, it's a knowing. When you know, when you say, oh, I'm going to meet George down the street. And we always meet at George's favorite hangout. You know this. So if something happens and George doesn't show up, you don't think George stood you up. You know that something is wrong because that is unlike George. You know. This is the difference between feeling as an emotion and knowing something. When you know a thing, satisfaction. When you know something, when you stand there and you say, I know what I did. I know what I saw. When we know a thing, that's what he's talking about. It's that thing. When you know a thing, when you know that feeling you get that says, I know this. It's like 2 times 2. You know to say 4 because we learned rote memory our times tables. It is a knowing of something. That's what he's talking about. Not that you've got to work yourself up or no, you have to convince yourself. So what are you doing? You're knowing something. When you convince yourself of something, you see, we know things and we act according to what we know on a daily basis. When you get in your car to drive it, so long as you have your license and you've went through driving school, what do you know? You know. You know this. So you drive according to what you know based on what you've learned. So when Neville says feel the feeling of the wish fulfilled, assume that you are what you want to be. He's telling you, you know what? You're going to have to know that you are. You're going to have to know that you are. You have to know it. Because that's what you do anyway. You know what you know. You know what you know. And so when we know what we are, that's where we act and live from. So you know that feeling you get that confirms? When you say, if you say, oh, it's Taco Tuesday, you know it is. Oh, it might seem trivial to give you such simple examples, but what I'm hoping to stimulate in your mind is the feeling of knowing. When you know, you know. That is what he's talking about when he says to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is why when he asks you, what would it be like if? What would it feel like if? Well, you'd be satisfied, wouldn't you? To know that you know a thing. You don't question it because you know it. So, this is what he's asking you to have the audacity, the boldness of knowing. That's the feeling he's speaking of. You see, sometimes what's the word I want to say here? Sometimes when we want to accomplish something or we've accomplished something, sometimes we sit there and we say, oh man, that would have happened anyway. And we take for granted the part that we played in it. We take for granted the part we play. And the law doesn't give you an opportunity to forget. Never. It holds it in front of your face and causes you to look at it. This is why sometimes it can be difficult to look at ourselves. But when you know a thing, there's a confidence that comes. You go out to garden. You know what you want to bring in. You know what you want your harvest to be. Like anybody who's in the Northern Hemisphere right now, you've planted your garlic. Because you know, come April, it sprouts. You know that. If you've done it before, you know. And so you confidently go out and you plant it. Not because you're hoping to get a harvest, but because you know. Because you know you have to reap it. So today, what do you know? What do you know? Because it's where you're living from. So when something good happens to you, it's not a coincidence. You played a part in that. So now if something quote unquote bad happens to you, you played a part in that. So we don't brush it off and say, oh man, no. You look at it and you recognize what you've done. Recognize that you acted according to what you knew. That's what we do. That's what the law is calling us to do on a daily basis. So you take your time and you go through it. If you've ever done alphanumeric, so data entry, and you practiced, do you know that if you put the wrong number in, you know exactly, and you go back and you fix it because you, based upon where the fingers are on the keys, yeah, it might look like you're not even thinking when you enter it, but when you make a mistake, your mind says, hey, fix it. Why? Because you know where the keys are. You know it. So that when you make that mistake with the entry, you can go back to fix it right away. It is always going to be what you know. Always. What you know. And the funny thing about what we know is what we've learned. What we know is what we've learned. And sometimes the intuition. This is why it is important to know your own inner voice. You must know your own inner voice so that when it speaks to you, you will say to yourself, oh, I'm glad I did that. See how it turned out? You'll do that more than you do, shoot, I should have listened. You'll do it more So what I'm saying to you today is, you know. So then you say to yourself, you know what? I really want this thing to happen in my world. I really need it to happen. I really, 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 really need it to happen. If you do that, you don't know yet. Because when you know the thing you want to occur in your life, you say, okay, here's what I want to experience in my life. And you begin to rehearse it. Why? You rehearse it because you know you have to live it. You have to act it out on the stage of life. So you're not hoping for something to unfold. You are projecting what you want to unfold and allowing it to unfold. Why? Because you know that when you do that, it unfolds. We don't hope, we don't wish, we don't plead, we don't beg. Those behaviors are from someone who does not know. But how do you know? You learn. And how do you solidify what you've learned? By practicing. This is why we are called to be doers. Because the lesson is in the doing. It is in the doing. Because when you do a thing, the more you do it, now you know it. It is, and we say a funny phrase, second nature. Second nature, which means what? Second nature is the thing you've taught yourself to do. And to do it as if it were your nature to do it. There's certain things we're born with inherently within our nature. Chickens, they perch. That's their nature. They love to perch. That's their nature. But second nature is something you've learned to do so that it becomes just like the perching that you were inherently born to do. We learn to walk. It is now second nature. So that if something happens, we have to relearn. Right? But here's the thing. You know it. Once you've learned a thing and you practice it, and practice it, you now know it. You don't question it. You know that if you mix soda, as long as the baking soda is alive and you mix it with vinegar, you know exactly what's going to happen. So that if that baking soda is no longer viable, you know that you need to get a new box because the reaction, because it goes against what you've known. So what I'm telling you today, the feeling that you get, the feeling is the knowing. The feeling is the knowing. That's what we're dealing with. So that when you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you walk down the street as if you know something that nobody else does. And what is that something that you know that somebody else does not know? You know that if you do a certain thing, if you follow your desire, you say, okay, this is what I want to experience. You know that if you do that, the moment you say, this is what I want to experience, then the experience is there. It is done. Nobody has to convince you. You already know. Because it is law. So that's why when you have the desire and you say, meh, I know what I'm doing. I know that this is what I'm going to experience, so I will continue to think along these lines. And all the synchronicities or coincidences are just there to confirm that I am on the right track, that I'm polarized in the direction that I say I am. And so you walk that path with a level of, yay, anticipation for what you have planted. You know, the due date. That's what you walk in, the knowledge of the due date. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes we allow our eyes and our ears to pull us off course. You see, when you know a thing, you don't rely on the senses. You go with what you know. So I was saying something to somebody the other day, and I happened to say, oh, yeah, I wear my glasses everywhere. Yep, in the shower, I sleep with them. And they said to me, but you don't need your glasses to shower. Isn't everything? Don't you know where everything is? It's not that I don't know where everything is. I just don't want it to be blurry. So you see, when we say, I know a thing, you do know it. You know it. You know where your armpits are. You know where your toes are. You don't need your eyes to tell you because you know where they are. So, do you know the law only because you've memorized it? Or do you know the law because you have practiced it so much that you can see it and you say, look, I planted corn, I'm reaping corn. And you don't even worry. You don't fret. You don't panic. You do none of that. Because you've practiced so much that you know. You know it can only go one way. And that is in your favor, your success. That's why you do it. Because you know it. You memorize those words to the song. How did you learn them? By practicing them over and over and over again so that you don't need to see the sheet music. All you know is that when that beat comes in, you know where to start singing because you have practiced. And you rely upon what? What you have rehearsed, what you have practiced, because you know the outcome of what you have practiced. So this is why only practice the behavior, only practice the thoughts that bring about the desired outcome, because you know how it ends. But if we give in and we talk ourselves out of what it is we want to experience, oh, but I don't have these kind of qualifications. Oh, but. What does the law say? The law says, well, you practice that mode of thinking, it will only turn out in that fashion. How can you be successful when you continually talk yourself out of your own success? Oh, sure, you'll be successful, but in the other way, in the opposite direction. You'll successfully not follow through. This is why we entertain only those things that are good, true, honest, of good report. Why? Because we know how they turn out. We know how it turns out. This is why Neville says, that habits behave like law. You keep doing the same thing the same way every time. It has to follow law. Now you've created a rhythm. You've created a rhythm, a pattern. So it has to follow law now. This is why we practice those things, whether they be actions or thoughts that we want to experience. So if you catch yourself, you know how we get sometimes. Are you sure you can do that? Oh, but they're better at it than you. There's one side. What's the other side? You got this. You know, I've been practicing. And the more I practice, the better I get. Well, that is law. See, you're still talking to yourself, either one way or the other. But the outcome will show you how you've spoken to yourself so that you know that as within, so without. You see, the law always puts you in a position of knowing, always in a position of knowing yourself. So if you know that you practice being level headed and looking at a situation and choosing the best path, what do you think you're going to do under pressure? You'll assess the situation and choose the best path. Because you've practiced being level headed. We call it discipline. That's what you've practiced. So it doesn't matter the situation, right? It doesn't matter the situation. What is that scripture? He who is faithful with little is faithful with much. Why? It doesn't have anything to do with a little bit or a lot. What is the character of the person? What do you know them to be? What do you know yourself to be? So if you're faithful with a little bit, you'll be faithful with a lot just because you're faithful. So if you know yourself to be faithful, mind you, we don't wake up faithful, do we? We practice being faithful and we live faithful day in and day out. We just do. But it comes because we do it, not because you heard somebody say you should. It's not the hearsay. It's always going to be the experience, hands down. So you've got to know. That's what that feeling is. It is a knowing. You know something. And then you're guided. Well, who guides you? The still small voice within. Remember the two ways. Oh man, I should have listened. Or, whew, what a relief. I'm so glad I listened. Those are the two ways. And so the more you practice listening and feeling, or what? The knowing of your own still small voice, well, then you'll always know what to do. You'll never have to, am I right? Am I wrong? I don't know what to do. No. Why? Because you've practiced knowing yourself. So that when something arises, you'll know if it's you or it's not you. You see, when you take the time to know yourself, you are not easily led astray. Not even by the most well-meaning people. Why? Because that still small voice that you've spent so much time listening to, it is accompanied by a knowing. And the knowing, as above, so below. The knowing is the awareness that you know something. So below, the body has to correspond with a sensation. You know, the pit of your stomach. That's how you know what you know. You are aware of knowing it mentally, and then your body confirms, oh, I've had this feeling before. I know I'm doing the right thing. What was that? You know you're doing the right thing. So the feeling in the body is the knowing that is in your mind, your awareness. What are you aware of knowing? It is accompanied by a physical sensation in your body. Because if you think about it, when you follow your intuition, the still small voice, and you know something, and you're like, ooh, you know what? I'm going to do it this way because I know what happens if I don't. There'll be a mess to clean up. And so what do? You follow through with the knowing because it is confirmed inside your body. So when Neville says to you, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, he's telling you, listen, you planted this seed. You were aware of planting it. Now you are aware of the fact that you have to reap it. And what does that feel like in your body? What does that knowing feel like in your body? You know, when somebody says, I know I was just going to do it, I knew it was going to happen to me. And you ask them, how did you know? I felt it. They felt it in their body, but they knew it in their brains first. They became aware. So when you are creating something in your life, you have to know that when you create it, it is done. There's no more hemming and hawing and trying to, maybe. No, because you know. So where in your life can you recall? Ponder it. Where do you recall having this knowing? You were so sure of yourself. You weren't just sure in your brain. Your body confirmed that you were sure also. And so you acted according to the thing you were sure of. You didn't waver from it. So you see, why then, if you want to start something new, a new venture, why then do you sit there and say, oh, I don't know how this is going to turn out. I don't know. I'm not sure. When the moment the desire comes upon you, it has already been fulfilled. Because cause and effect are travel buddies. They walk hand in hand. There is no effect without a cause. If something happened and you experienced it, there's a cause. This is not random. So you've got to get to the point where you know that you are the cause of your life experiences. Oh, but Angela, that's too big a burden to bear. Actually, it's not a burden. It's a freedom. You know why? Because if you know that you are the cause of every experience, well, now you know you'll act accordingly to bring about the desired experience, as opposed to just being blind with your emotions and bringing about unwanted things that we get to complain about. So you see, it is a very good thing. The law always puts you and I in the position of the head and not the tail. Why? Because you, if you take charge and control of your life, you are the one determining how it turns out. Oh, sure, Angela, sure. That's why I grew up in the neighborhood I grew up in. That's why my family is what I came out of. Here's the beauty of the law, right? When we are wee little ones, we are under the care of someone else. Not only are we under the care of someone else, we are under the perspective of someone else. The beauty of the law is when you become aware of yourself, now you get to change the perspective that you are under. You get to decide what perspective you want to have so that you no longer have to continue under the undesirable perspective of someone else. You see, the law always sets us free. It asks you a simple question. Hey, Joe, what's that experience you're having right now? Do you like it? Yeah, yeah, dog, I like it. Carry on. You know what? I don't like it. Okay, Joe, if you don't like it, what would you prefer it to be? And then you take it from there. You are always in control. You are always in control. Whether you accept it or refuse it, you are in control. So it is best to accept it deliberately so you can make the desired changes in your life. Because you know what it is that you want to accomplish. You do. And the only thing that holds us back is I don't know how it's going to happen. And I always will refer to the garden because it makes the most sense when you're dealing with the law, with things you can see. As I mentioned to you earlier, you want to have a nice stash of garlic. So what are you going to plant? You're going to plant the bulb. But do you know how the bulb grows? You know that the bulb grows, but do you know how it grows? Oh, the roots come out. Yeah, but do you know how? Oh, they break to the bottom. Do you know how? Do you know what causes the roots to just burst forth? No, you don't. We can call it, oh, well, when you have the right temperature in the soil and this right amount of water. Mm. But how do they all work in combination? You see, that's the part we don't know. And that's the part we're trying to figure out. But you don't have to figure it out. Your job is to know what it is. Your job is to know what it is that you want to harvest and plant accordingly. And the law will do the rest. You get the rain, you get the dirt, you get the sun. They'll come together in their own combination to do what needs to be done. Period. But here we are trying to figure out how. Go ahead and call it a miracle if you will. Call it a miracle if you will. Okay, do that. But in actuality, it is law. You see, everything moves. That is the law of vibration. So for you today, you have to know what harvest you want to bring in, and then you have to act accordingly by planting the appropriate mental seeds, mental thoughts, because those mental thoughts are going to bring about words, and those words are going to bring about actions, so that you now, based upon the action you experience, you can say, oh my God, you see, I knew it was going to go this way. It can't go any other way than you ordain it to go. How do you ordain it to go? That depends on how you speak to it. How are you speaking to yourself? Those are the seeds. Are you telling yourself that all things are possible? Or are you telling yourself, I don't know the right people? You see, the funny thing is, once you plant according to what you want to harvest, the people, the places, and all the things required will make their way to you. It's not by magic, it is by law. The roots have to come forth, and then it sprouts, and then it blossoms, and then it bears fruit. Your job is to know what it is, not to justify it. Well, I've been a bad boy. I've been a bad girl. How can anything possibly work out for me? Nobody asked you if you were a good girl or a bad girl. The law doesn't care. Oh, well, look at the evidence of that around us, don't we? The law doesn't care if you're good, bad, or indifferent. But always remember, every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. And what's driving the cause? What you say you want. That today, when you know a thing mentally as done, when you know it mentally, it has to show up physically. That's why you get the knowing and the feeling. They're simultaneous, they happen together. That's why sometimes we think it's only the feeling in the body, when in actuality, the effect cannot happen without a cause. And the cause is that thought that you planted. So today, practice. What do you want? What do you want to experience in your life? Know that you do. And the moment that you know that you do, and you have planted that seed, things begin to unfold in the direction that you are facing in. That's how you will know the evidence. Things have to correspond. So if you say, well, I am polarized, that is the law of polarity. If you say, I am polarized in the direction of my success, to be polarized in the direction of your success, you cannot have an experience that says to you, you failed. Oh, you had a setback? What if you looked at that setback and said, wait a minute. I haven't lost sight of my ideal. Yeah, you haven't lost sight of it. Here's an example. Sometimes how your credit rating will swing sometimes? Sometimes you'll gain 3 points or 10 points, or you lose some. Does that mean that you mucked it up, or are you still doing what you need to do to be faithful, to pay your bills on time and follow through, and 30%, 30, yeah, below 30%. Have you not followed through? Are you not following through? Do you give up because you lost 20 points? No, you don't give up. You call and you ask a question. Why? Because you're polarized in the direction of excellent credit. So you're only going to experience that. So what do? You get up and you carry on in the direction that you say that you're going in. That's what you do. Why? Because you know the outcome. You know the outcome. But I'm scared, Angela. Which one of us isn't? Which one of us is not afraid? At some point in our lives, we're afraid of something. But what do? Do you allow it? What if I'm wrong? What does the law say? Whatever is good, whatever is true, whatever is honest, whatever is of good report, think on these things. Why do you think on those things? Because what you are aware of in your mind, your body will bring about the experience, because it has to correspond. So if your attention is fully on good, pure, but then you know what you'll experience. But if your attention is on, oh my God, what's going to happen? I'm so scared. The pendulum always swings. So be encouraged today that you know what you know. You know. I keep always referring to this with the smile and your mirror neurons. We have the ability to override things in our bodies. Oh, we don't just walk around and say mind over matter for nothing. Mind over matter, because mind, without mind, there is no matter. So here we are. Here's the example. You don't feel like smiling today, right? Because something happened and you're just, as my father would say, blue vex. You're just mad. You don't want to smile. And you've determined you're not gonna. But a funny thing happens. Somebody walks by you and they smile. If you allow that person's smile, because it's funny, you don't have to be the one smiling, but if you observe the smile, your body will release endorphins, just like you had smiled. But you know what we do? Because we say, I refuse to smile today. It is in the refusal that you suppress the endorphins from emerging naturally. When in actuality, if you would allow just the observation of that smile to create endorphins within you, you would change right there without effort, without having to fight. Because the endorphins, if you just look at the smile and allow the endorphins to just show up and do what they do naturally, the feel good hormone, the happy hormone, your perspective would change and you would see things clearly. But once you say, no, I refuse to smile today, no endorphins for you, well, then you can't reap the benefits of the endorphins. Why would I tell you that? Because everything has been designed for you to have it easy. Oh, Lord, I know somebody's going to want to come for me when I say that. But that's what it is. Think about that. You don't have to smile. You just have to observe one. And your body will release its own endorphins. You think it gets any easier than just doing that part? Now, here's the thing. What else can you just allow to assist you? That's what the law does day in and day out. It makes things easier for us so we don't have to fight and struggle. You're not supposed to. But if you believe that you do, that belief that you've practiced now becomes your what? Your thing that you know. So when you say, man, life is hard, I know life is hard, you can't be made a liar of. So life has to be hard. What does the scripture say? The power of what? Life and death is where? In the what now? In the tongue. Why? Because the tongue forms those words that you hear and that you are aware of being. So if you are aware of being successful and you speak, you only speak what it is you know. So if you now know, oh man, this sucks. Power of life and death is in the tongue. The tongue is the effect, but the cause is what you say you are. Well, how? I am. Pay attention to what you're saying to yourself, and not only to yourself, but in conversation with others. Man, I'm so I'm so this. I'm so that. How do you know? Because you've been saying it to yourself for so long. You became it. Confirmation. As within, so without. You had to become it. Because you kept saying it to yourself over and over and over again. And seeing the effects of it. And that's what caused you to know it. So you see, when you declare, I am, I know we say it all the time because it's the in fad thing going around nowadays. But look at it through the lens of the law. The all is mind. The universe is a mental creation. The buck starts and stops with your mentality. How do you see yourself? If you don't know how you see yourself, the mirror of life experience will show you. So you see that feeling you get of what you know? How do you get to know it? You learn it and you practice it. So, what are you teaching yourself? What are you learning about yourself? Are you learning that you can't, or are you learning that you can and that you should? You see, the law is absolutely amazing. Mentalism, the all is mind. The universe is a mental creation. Oh, how so, Angela? What do you mean it's mental? You ever had an idea to write a song? Where'd it come from? As above. Where? Your awareness, your mind. I feel like writing a song. And you go through a whole process because then you decide what you want that song to make the listener feel like. Well, how do you know what to make the listener feel like? It depends. What do you feel like? Because that's where you'll write the song from. Hmm? That's where you'll write the song from. This is what it is, day in and day out. Whatever that feeling is, that feeling is telling you what you know. So, if that thing that you know is leading you to fulfillment and peace of mind, well, keep doing it. But if that thing is leading you to strife and fretting and frustration, ooh, you better learn something else. Because nobody truly wants to be in that state of arguing. Oh, it looks like it, but they only get that way because they do the same thing the same way every time. And this is how it is, day in and day out. So, today, my beautiful friends, what is it that you know? Because you're living it. And all one need do is to observe themselves. Observe yourself. And polarity will always ask you, hey, where are you now? What are you doing? And when you answer that question, I'm here and I'm doing this. You like it or you don't like it? Only you know how to answer that question. But if you like it, the obvious thing to do is to carry on. If you don't like it, then you have to choose something else. Not whether you think choosing is going to be possible or impossible, but simply choose what would feel better to you. That's what we do with polarity. And that's why you're always moving from towards, from where you are towards where you want to be. And you're moving between two things that are exactly the same in their nature. That's all it is. Who's here today? Let's take a brief moment to welcome everyone, shall we? Yoda Burger, hey, stranger. V22, Roo Root, Jeff, woot woot. It is excellent to see you all here on Twitter. Oh, yes, it is. It sure is. Who's here on YouTube this morning? Well, the ones who've made themselves known in the chat. Well, Facebook, India's here. Anot, Joaquin, Cyber, Marjorie, David, Goddess, Pure Diamond. Marjorie. Marjorie says, because remember, if you say things are the way they have to be. She says, things are hard. Life is hard. Inflation. The housing market is bad. She says, thankfully, these things don't apply to me. Not in my world. That just reminded me of Agent Smith. He goes, this is my world. My world. Well, if it is your world, start creating like it is with that kind of boldness. I digress. She says she closes her ears and she shuts her eyes. And she keeps living where? In her mind. Because as above, so below. The thing that you are aware of being in your mind must present itself for you to experience in your physical world. Marjorie, you know I love you. Who's here on fan base? KZ, Miss McQueen. Hey, King B. L. Afternoon Delight. Hey, I see you, girl. Coach Summer Rose. I see you all. I see you. Hey, Zola. I looked for you and I was like, where did Zola go? And then I looked down there and I saw you. And D Banks, I see you all. So remember today, that feeling. I remember that one morning I woke up and I had the dream and the song was in my dream. What a feeling. That was in my dream. And I was like, what? But you see, the feeling that you get in your body is the below. To what? The awareness above. What are you aware of? Oh, I am angry. The body has to show signs of anger. Oh, I'm pleased as punch. Ooh, I am tickled pink. The body has to correspond. So whatever you are aware of being is what you will experience as a feeling in your body. It is law. So whatever it is that you know has to show itself in your body. As above, so below. The law is amazing. What law, you ask? The 7 principles. Mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, causation, and gender. Whether we know of their existence or not is irrelevant because they govern creation. Period. And you and I, we don't just procreate. We create mentally also. And I always say one of the best places to see the law at work is outside. You know that scripture, you reap what you've sown? That is the law of correspondence. As above, so below. As within, so without. You can't plant carrots and pick peas, y'all. So if inside your mind you're walking around and you're cussing yourself out all day, what do you think your experiences will be like? Why do I refer to that side of things, Angela, instead of the positive pole? Because how many of us argue all the time? Sometimes over the most trivial of things. You might not argue, but you may encounter an argument because that's what we're doing day in and day out with ourselves and in our own minds. So if I say to you, what are you saying to yourself? That is what you look at. Whatever you're saying to yourself, those are the actions you're going to get. Those are the actions. If you're walking around like a pixie, the hills are alive, and you're sprinkling pixie dust, well, then that's what you're going to encounter, that bliss, that happiness. But if you walk around like, you ever seen that meme with the guy in the umbrella, and he's got the umbrella open, and it's only raining underneath the umbrella because he's, yeah. Yeah. So today, my beautiful friends, be encouraged. As above, so below. As within, so without. You know something. And what you know, your body will confirm for you. Always. Because it is law. So if you don't like the experiences on the outside, you have to change the perspective on the inside. It's quite like neem oil and garlic. If you've never had the smell of neem in your nostrils, lucky you. But if you had, it is an acquired smell. It's like, you think garlic is pungent? Oh, heavens no. Neem is much more pungent. But here's neem, right? Neem doesn't smell great, but it is phenomenal for the skin. All you got to do is get past the fact that it smells to benefit and have beautiful skin. Find a beautiful, fragrant oil that will blend well with it. Perhaps a frankincense or a myrrh, who knows? But to change your perspective of neem oil as being ew to wow, you have to change your inner perspective in order for the outside that is visible to change. I like the way Neville explained it. If you look in the mirror and you say, oh my God, those things don't go, bust the mirror. You're still wearing it. So what do? You change. You have to change you so that the reflection in the mirror changes. So what are you looking at in your life? What do you know? You'll see it. Change the perspective. And the image that you're looking at will change. So if you're continually complaining all the time, surprise, you'll continue to complain about many things. All because of the perspective, the reflection, the image in the mirror. And the image in the mirror is you. And that is a very good thing to know that it is you. If you looked in the mirror and saw someone else, how would you ever know yourself? And that's why the law is so beautiful. So if you're looking at the reflection of your life today and you're saying, I love it, I just love it, well, carry on. But if you look at that reflection and you go, oh my God, what is this? It's only the way you're seeing yourself. So what way would you prefer to see yourself? Start seeing yourself like that mentally, because the universe is a mental creation. So to change the outside, you have to change your attitude on the inside. That is what I will tell you this morning. You can do it. Of course you can. Didn't Henry Ford say that? Whether you Think you can or you think you cannot? You're right. Which one? Whichever one you think. Because you can't be made a liar of. The law? No, no. No, no. If you say it is, then it has to be. That's why only say what it is you want it to be. Look at the things you want to experience. Think on those things, whatever is good, whatever is true, whatever is honest and of good report. Think on those things, because when you think on those things, you speak on those things. And when you speak on those things, they become and you act them out. So, my beautiful friends, that is where it is. It is squarely on you. But it is, I want that scripture, Cyber. My cast your cares on me, for my yoke is light. I don't remember what it is, but you know what I'm talking about. You think that it is a heavy burden to know the law and to be 100% responsible for yourself. It is not a burden, my friends. It is the greatest gift that there is. Because only you can change you. Can you imagine looking at something undesirable in your life and being stuck with it? The law says, well, you don't like that? Let's change our attitude and our behaviors will change, and then bam! Just like the houseplant that you forget to water. When you remove your attention, your mental attention, from something that is undesirable in your life, it goes away. No, you're not ignoring it. You know that it is there full well, but you have made a choice. You said, that's not adding to me. That's quite parasitic. You know what? I'm going to go over here and I'm going to feed myself with all things that are life giving. And because you are polarized in the direction of life giving, you have to become more abundant in life. But if you put your attention upon the parasite, then it becomes like a feed me, Seymour, and it will suck the life out of you. Why? Because you're looking at it. You're giving it your attention. Cyber, things wither and die for want of attention. You don't pay attention to your relationship? Yeah, that's right. It withers and dies. But if you nurture a thing with your attention and your care, it flourishes. And you see, you know that. Because look at how your body responds. You're like, yeah, that's true. See? Anywho, let us get the bowl, my friends. Let's get the bowl, shall we? Because I don't want to keep you long. Oh, look, it's been an hour. That's long, Angela. Let's get the bowl. Let me find it here. Countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jeff, Yoda Burger Roo Roo, and my girl Lilith and Cuddles. Thank you all for being here on Twitter this morning. Much love to you all. Twitter is closed. Let's do this. YouTube. Thank you for being here. Cyber, Marjorie, Goddess Pure Diamond, David, Joaquin Anot. I did not say the better man. I will see you all. Much love to you, YouTube and Facebook. Indy, you get it, girl.